everything you thought that you were going to do or you planned to do probably did not happen because your vision of what you thought you were going to be was naive. You know, when you get out there and you dodge obstacles and pivot, it leads you into places that you thought you wouldn't go. In those places are going to be opportunities for you. Just look for those opportunities and you're going to probably be okay. You can be good at something, really good at something, but you'll find yourself in a world of people that are also good at that thing. So the difference between you and them is not going to be how good you are. It's going to be the atmosphere that you create around yourself that people find themselves in. If you're creating an atmosphere around you that people enjoy being in, that's going to be your secret weapon. That's going to be what's going to take you farther. Not how good you are, how you make people feel who work with you and interact with you. Create an atmosphere that people can thrive in and feel good in and feel good about you, but more importantly, feel good about themselves, and you're going to be okay. So my name's John Papa. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, living here in Rhode Island now via New York City. I run a company. I have a company called Masimoto Media. Do television commercials, marketing videos, some entertainment. Yeah, dude, whatever. Man, whatever's going to pay the bills, I'm going to do it, you know, that kind of thing.
Tell us about Cleveland. That's where you're from.
Yeah, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Lived there till 1999. It was cool. It was cool. You know, as a kid, you don't know where you're from or what you're doing, or you have no sense of what it is somewhere else. You know, you just this is where I came out of my mother, and this is where I am. You know, so you're cool. But you know, as you get older, you kind of start realizing where you're at and that sort of thing. And I, you know, in the '80s when I was a young adult, you know, out of high school and that sort of thing, musician. Cleveland had an amazing music scene during that whole time. Like, you know, it was all like alternative kind of thing. So it was like a big, like, second British invasion that came in with alternative music, that sort of thing that I got really into. I was a bass player. And I played in a bunch of bands, and the scene was amazing. I mean, in Cleveland, it was incredible. You could pick up a Scene magazine, which is what everybody read, weekly free magazine. And you open it up, it's just where you could look at any day. You could go see an amazing band, whether it's a local band or a national band, anywhere. It was just so much music there. So that made it great. It was a cool scene for that, you know. So Cleveland was cool. Like I said, I haven't lived there since 1999, but you know, still, you know, big Cavs fan since 1972, and you know, followed the Indians forever, and Browns fan, the whole thing. So retained my sports affiliations with Cleveland, that sort of thing. I got family there, and so I get back quite often. Dear friends still there. My time there was good. I couldn't wait to get out. But when you get out, you realize, you know, there was some cool shit there, and I look back on it very fondly. So yeah, I loved Cleveland. Still love Cleveland to this day.
Let's go back a little further, and we'll come back to the music scene in Cleveland. But let's go back to your childhood and talk a little bit about what your parents did, what your dad did, what your mom do, and what was your upbringing like.
Okay, so my upbringing was, it is what it is. You don't know, again, being a kid, you don't know what's normal. You don't know what a normal upbringing is. Normal upbringing is whatever is happening in your house. That's normal to you. You know, I look back at it now, and I think, you know, my father was a carpenter who eventually, like, got into, like, management sort of thing, and big union guy, that sort of thing. My mom, she mostly stayed home, but she would work when we needed money for something. It's like it was a different kind of situation. We need a dining room set, or the washer and dryer are dead. My mom would go work, and we would, you know, get that shit from my mom's ability to jump in there and help out when we needed to. But looking back on it, I mean, I don't remember being happy as a kid. I mean, my wife and I were talking about this not too long ago. What did it feel like being a kid? She's asking me, what was it like? What did you feel like? I said, to be honest with you, it's like, I just remember feeling scared and alone, very lonely. When I was a kid, I had 5 brothers and sisters spanning huge age differences. My oldest brother, Tony, is 12 years older than me, and always like a second father to me. And then I have a younger brother. But yeah, even though I had all those siblings, I just remember feeling scared and alone. My parents got divorced when I was 11, and then my mom, God bless her, did the best she could, but moved every time the house got dirty. I was always the new kid in school, that kind of thing. So I always found myself, reinventing myself to fit in, trying to just never know what my place was, maneuver, fighting a lot, getting in a lot of fights as a kid because I, was kind of a pretty boy, skinny, had to kind of punch my way into things when I was younger. And, yeah, I just kind of remember it that way. Not that my whole childhood was like that, but, my father was, and don't get me wrong, anything I say, I love my father very much. He's gone. He passed in 1999. But, he didn't have a dad. His dad died when he was 10, and I don't know anything about him. He came from Sicily. But he died when my dad was 10. So my dad's whole reference of what a father is built on what he had. You know what I mean? So, and that's like that for anybody who's has kids or whatever. Your role model for being a father is whatever your father was to you. You know what I mean? So ideally, every generation is going to get better. My son, my oldest boy, who's 32, he's got a baby coming. And I was talking to him about it the other day, and it's just like, look, dude, just be the dad that you longed for. You know what I mean? That's the best you can do. Don't be the dad I was, because I made mistakes. My dad made mistakes. His dad, I assumed did. I don't know. But you just have to be the dad you longed for. So, but yeah, my mom. Just going to my mom a little bit. I don't know how she did it, to be honest with you, because between myself and my younger brother Vinny, we were in fucking trouble all the time. Fights, shit with school, was not a good student. And again, not. I think of myself as a fairly smart, articulate guy, but school did not gel with me. Never did. I didn't have a stable environment that promoted that for me. There was no one saying, let's get that homework done. Let me help you with that. Da, da, da. Did you do your home? Did you even do your homework? I never heard that, that kind of thing. So, I didn't put a ton of effort into it. Again, because I was always trying to kind of find out where the fuck I was. What was I? Who was I? I didn't know, And that's, never really knew who I was or felt like I understood what my place was until I got into music and became a musician. And then that's when my life kind of changed, definitely for the better.
So Cleveland had a lot to do with that, I would imagine, because of the music scene. So, how much would you say Cleveland, being in Cleveland at that time and feeling lonely and feeling like you didn't know your place, how much do you feel like Cleveland had to do with you having the access to music, which in turn kind of gave you some direction?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved music, even as a kid. I mean, I had older brothers and sisters. I'm second youngest, and I told you there's a big age span between myself and all of us. 12 years is a long time. So growing up as a kid, a little kid in the 60s, I was born in 1961, there was always like Motown playing in my house. My sister Kathy was a big Motown person, and then way into disco and that kind of shit. So there was always music going constantly. So music was always something I loved. Always kind of thought, I want to be a musician. But there were no guitar lessons and that kind of thing when I was a kid. There was no money for that. There was no money for those extra things like that. But yeah, Cleveland, again, being that big music town and just having those older brothers and sisters, just sort of music was always there, and something I gravitated to and listened to and analyzed, and didn't just listen to it. I kind of like really picked it apart, and heard parts of it, and I'm like, oh, I love how that snare drum sounds. You know what I mean? Like stupid shit like that. When you're a kid, that's not how you listen to music. This is a fun little tune, and I love. No, I was like saying, oh, that snare drum sounds really cool, or I love the guitar part in Born to Be Wild, or something like that. These are not like, I don't think how kids listen to music, but it was how I listened to it.
Do you remember the first time you picked up a guitar?
Absolutely do. Yeah, it was my brother played guitar before me, my older brother Tony again. And he had gone off to the Navy, and his guitar was in the closet behind. We had a bar in our basement, which, go figure. Who the fuck has a bar in their basement? We had a bar in our basement, and behind that bar was like a storage area, and there was a guitar, and I knew it was in there. And I'm like, I want to get that guitar. I want to pull that guitar out of there. And I pulled it out, and as I pulled it out, I broke a lamp that was at the bar, and it broke on the floor, and my dad was really pissed at me. So my first time I picked up a guitar, I broke something, and got yelled at. So that was no question the first time. And then I probably didn't pick up one for many, many years after that, and always wanted to play and that sort of thing. And then when I was in 7th grade, my mom got me a shitty guitar and sent me to guitar lessons, and I took guitar lessons for 6 months. And then I love my guitar teacher. He was amazing, good guy. But then he quit. He went back to college or whatever, and I had no teacher, so I just started teaching myself, and I just continued, and I always played, and I play. I'm not a guitar player. I didn't wind up being a guitar player. I can play guitar, and I do, like, when I record stuff. A lot of times I'll do the guitar parts for things, but I'm not proficient. I'm a bass player. I wound up being a bass player, and so. Guitar kind of got me into it, but when I started playing bass, that felt natural to me. You know what I mean? And it felt natural, I think, because I've always picked apart music. And as a bass player, not only are you the one that doesn't get the girls, but you're the person who knows every other musician's parts. You know what I mean? You're playing a weird instrument because you're not out there soloing. You're not creating a melody that, or a hook, for example. You're complementing. You're a rhythmic instrument that has tone to it. So you're complementing. You're weaving your way through. You're making other things sound better. And that's what a good bass player is going to do. He's going to make a song better. He's going to make a guitar player sound better. He's going to make the drummer sound better. It's a different thing, than other instruments in the band.
Tell us about your first bands. First bands, first experiences doing gigs.
Um, I mean, I had a lot of shitty bands. When I first got going, because you don't know what the hell you're doing while you're out there, and you're just a bunch of dumb kids and that sort of thing. And I mean, my first band that did anything. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I had some friends I played with in a band called Sharp Kicks. That was fun. I was a bass player for, and it was like the very beginnings of that alternative '80s thing. So we did a bunch of gigs. We played. It was good. It was a good experience. Good guys. Loved them all. One of the guys was a friend of mine from high school. And a lifelong friend. I don't talk to him anymore. We kind of went our separate ways for whatever reason, as people do. But it was a great experience. Played out a lot. I knew instinctively that this was a stepping stone to other things. And then after that, I mean, I played in a series of different bands. I mean, then I found myself like auditioning for gigs and got some, didn't get some, that sort of thing. But then I had a band, the big turning point for me musically that made me say, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. I had a band called the Pony Boys. And this was a cool Cleveland band. I mean, it was an awesome band. In it with me were two guys I went to high school with. One guy's name was Jimmy Armstrong, and this guy was this super charismatic singer crooner guy that I knew from high school. People really admired his talent and what he could do. He was a fucking freak in high school, and everyone knew it. And but incredibly talented. You could see that. You know what I mean? It's like the guy had something. He definitely had something. And I can remember him calling me and saying, "Hey, I'm putting this band together. Are you interested in playing with me?" And I went over to his house, and I had my bass with me, and I played on his front porch with him. No amp, just played. And he said, "Okay, you're in. You're in. We're going to do this thing." And fuck, we did it. We put this band together. It was amazing. We did a lot of great things, a lot of great gigs, played all over the place, had a lot of acclaim, put out an album. We were kind of the shit in Cleveland for a while. And I say that knowing full. I fear other people that played in bands that I know at the same time as he go, that motherfucker, why is he saying they were the shit? But there were some really good bands there, and at the same time, but we were definitely something special. We were we were doing something different, way fucking different. We were doing freaking modern versions of fucking salsa tunes. I mean, just weird shit, but all original songs, and I think some really, really beautiful, great songs. And Jimmy was great on stage and amazing, but it's like with anything else, drugs got involved, and he had a big drug problem, and he was an alcoholic, and it caused big fucking problems, big problems. I mean, we were playing a lot in Cleveland, and I was told by someone in a club who owns a club there. I was very tight with a lot of the people because I booked the bands. I booked the band for our band. I was the person who booked the gigs. They said, "Hey, I just want you to know that Geffen has been calling around about you guys," and I told him that you guys are great, that you pack the place all the time, and but so and so from so and such and such club said everybody's going to tell you that this band is the greatest fucking thing in the world, but the singer is a drug addict and an alcoholic, and he's a fucking loose cannon, and you're fucking crazy if you get involved with him. And that was it for me. I'm like, I'm out. I'm fucking out. And I moved to New York City. And played there, did shit there.
So the drug and alcohol scene wasn't your thing.
I mean, I did drugs, I drank, but it was never my life. It never ruled me, never conquered me. But this person whom is gone, he died of an overdose, and I'll just say I had great affection for him, loved him. You know, he was, even though that we fought, I mean, fought big time. But I loved him. I went to high school with him. I say to this day, him and Eric, who is the keyboard player in the band, they made me the musician I am. They made me 100 times better. I was okay when I met these guys. I was okay. I could play in a rock band, no problem. These guys introduced me to shit I never listened to before and got me playing things I never played before. You know, taught me, gave me the knowledge of chord structure and rhythm and those things that I never had, that I would have never have stumbled upon sitting there trying to teach myself that shit. You know, these guys were fucking experts at it, and they, by being around them, it taught me so much. So they made me the musician I am to this day. And I give them 100% credit for it.
All right, so you moved to New York City.
I did.
What year did you move to New York City?
So I moved there twice. I moved there like 1987. Played in some bands there. Did that thing for a while. Wound up leaving. Moved to Florida for a couple of years. It was fucking awful. Fucking Florida is the worst fucking place in the world, in my opinion. I'm sorry. It's so stupid there that I just had to get the fuck out of there, you know. And I got out of there, went back to Cleveland, and stayed there for a while. Stayed till 1999. Got married, had a kid, still played in bands, did that whole thing. Much tougher to do with your kid. I owned a recording studio there and did that for a while. Recorded a bunch of bands, produced a bunch of bands, played in a bunch of bands simultaneously while doing all this shit, all while working another job and having a kid and that whole thing. So not the most conducive or ideal thing to try to, you know, to have a career in music. At that point, I almost thought, look, I'm probably done. I probably missed my shot. And that marriage didn't last, clearly. And wound up moving to New York again and doing it all over again. The second time I moved to New York, it was a much more serious endeavor for me. Maybe not because I tried harder, but things fell in my lap easier because a lot of the guys I played with in Cleveland, they left. They left Cleveland. They went to New York. They went to LA. Either or. And I retained those friendships, obviously. So I went there. I had a lot more opportunities. I had a great band in New York called Pin. And it was all guys that I knew from Cleveland. Every fucking one of us was from Cleveland. So it was myself, my buddy Greg Wooten, who's one of my lifelong best friends, who was also a bass player, who wound up playing guitar in this band. His girlfriend, Becca, was a singer. She was a great singer. My buddy Tim Kirker, who's an amazing guitar player, also from Cleveland, Ohio, who I've played on every album he's put out practically. I've played bass on. To this day, his last album, I just played one song on. So he always asks me to play on something. And he's a great songwriter, great musician. I mean, just epic fucking guitar player. And a great guy, obviously. Again, lifelong friend. And Doug Beck, who is a keyboard player from Cleveland, who's now out in Las Vegas via LA. He went out to LA for a while, scored a bunch of television shows, that sort of thing. Then went to Vegas and started working in live shows there in Vegas. Still does it. Again, another amazing musician. And my drummer friend, Michael Cardelloni, who also from Cleveland, who I played in bands with in Cleveland, Him and I are born on the same day. I played in tons of bands with him. He's now the drummer in Leonard Skinner and has been for 25, 30 years. I don't even know. It's been forever. And he's actually my son Massimo's godfather. So yeah, again, I can't stress enough lifelong friendships, in this band. And this band, it was incredible, and I thought I was gonna make it, great showcase at the oh fuck, what's the name of that? What's the name of that chick with the long hair? What's the name of that goddamn club? The Knitting Factory. We did a great showcase at the Knitting Factory that was fucking phenomenal. It was great. Great opening slots for people, but it didn't. It just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. And so, but I did find myself there playing a lot of sessions for people. Different. I'd get hired to play on people's records and shit, and did that, and that was great. I loved it, and I love doing that. I mean, if I had to say, like playing out and live is great. It's fun, but I love to play on people's records. I love to sit there, especially when I'm not sitting in the studio with them. I love to do it in my studio and take my time and have fucking 20 bass tracks going there and like pick it apart and put this great bass line together. I enjoy that much more than anything else.
How did your life go from music to filmmaking?
Accident, just a fucking accident. I went from music to film and video just by accident. I when I was in New York, I've always had skill as a carpenter and that kind of thing, so I'd always have to like have another job, to pay the bills. I got with a company that did a lot of set production, and so I started seeing the other world, a different world. So just completely on the ground floor, I got into it by accident. So I did that for quite a while. Got into doing some different things in video while I was there. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, worked as an art director and later directing a lot of commercials and that sort of thing. So it was almost like a little family business. We were both kind of into it together. I started getting into art direction with a buddy of mine who's now in London, Paul Avery. And we had a little company. We did art direction for a lot of little films and commercials and that kind of thing. And then the big thing that changed everything for me was I got in a pretty severe motorcycle accident. So I found myself in New York City in a third floor walk up in Manhattan with a very long recovery ahead of me. And I get a fucking phone call from a guy at Hasbro. We're starting a studio. We're looking for somebody like a jack of all trades kind of guy, and I had an audio engineering background and this whole video production. You want to interview for the job? I'm like, fuck, I can't walk. I'm crutching myself up to the third floor every day here. I'll look at it. So I go up and interview a couple times. And shit, they hired me.
Was this in New York City or?
Yeah, I was in New York City at the time. I had to come up to Rhode Island for the interviews. I mean, normally if somebody said, "Hey, move to Rhode Island," I'd be like, "Hey, fuck you, why? What's there? I don't even know. I don't know the first thing about Rhode Island. I'm living in New York. I love it. Why would I go there? Well, I can't walk. I can't walk. And I wound up 14 months of physical therapy just to get, to 75% of what I was. So they offered me a job. I took it. And I left New York and came to Rhode Island. And worked at Hasbro for 8 years. Loved pretty much every day of it. And but that ran its course. It was time to go.
What'd you do exactly?
So I went there. I had one person with a Media 100 editing system, and they said, "We're going to build a studio." And I'm like, "Fuck, you are?" Because I don't see much here. And sure as shit, we started hiring people. We started designing a studio. We hired, architects and all that kind of stuff. And I was very involved in that. And we built a beautiful, beautiful studio with an incredible shooting space and editing suites and audio engineering and all that kind of shit. All the stuff I loved right there. So I was in heaven. I was kind of a gear geek. So I was in heaven, and I was creating stuff every day, making things, creating content. The crazy thing was, I mean, this is 2005. Content wasn't anything then, it was nothing. But Brian Goldner, who at that time was the president of Hasbro, wound up being the CEO. He had a vision. He saw the content was going to be something. And he got in early. No one was doing this. No one thought about doing this shit. And and so he wanted to have a facility where he could pump out content. And so he was behind it 100%. So, I was there, wound up being the executive producer of the place. And we just pumped out content constantly. And like I said, I had a creative job. It wound up being not so creative after a while. You kind of, when you're in a big company, you have to manage people's careers too. And it's like I can't even manage my own fucking career. So I'm managing other people's careers. So it wound up not being what I wanted to do anymore.
Was this before all the movies that we know Hasbro is behind at this point?
It was before.
So there was no content coming out of Hasbro in
No,
film.
there was no content like that coming out of Hasbro. How I got noticed there was this person I knew at Hasbro came to me and said, "Hey, look, we're going to do a movie for Transformers. And we're looking for some interesting marketing ideas of how to market this movie, something that's not typical. Would you be interested in pitching some ideas?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." So Paul and I worked on some ideas, went up and presented them to Hasbro, to Brian, and a few other people there. And we left, thought it went well, got a call back from them a couple days later. And they said that the consensus was this was the freshest creative they'd seen in 10 years. So we said, "Hey, guess what? We're on to something, all right?" So that was my to them at the very first entrance into Hasbro. They liked what we saw, the creativity there. That got me the job offer. That got me the call to interview for the job. I worked my first kid's entire childhood away, and just had regret about that because I had to work. I was ambitious. I chased money. I had to work, and I worked my first kid's entire childhood away. And I'm not gonna do this with that kid, with this kid. I'm not gonna do this. So the opportunity presented itself for me to leave and be able to afford to not work for a while. I talked to my wife about it. I'm like, "I want to go. I want to spend a year with Massimo, not working." And she's like, "Yeah, man, let's do it. If we can make the numbers work, let's do it. We'll figure it out." She's like, "You'll land on your feet. I know you will." So I basically left, had no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to make money, how I was going to make money, how I was going to make my house payment. I had no idea, you know. But I left, and I spent every day hanging out with my kid, and I took him to school every day. I made his lunch every day. I picked him up from school every day, and fuck, it was the best. It was the best. I'll never get that time again, with my son, and it was beautiful, and I had a wonderful year doing that. But then after a year, I'm like, okay, I guess we got to make some money. I got to figure something out. And so I think I'm gonna start a production company. I have a lot of contacts, creating just creating content for different companies. I think we can do this. I said to my wife, and and I said, but there's going to be some ground rules, because I have to do this the way I want to do it. And the fucking first ground rule is I'm not going to work with anybody I don't like. Anybody who's a prick to me, I'm not going to work. I won't. They don't have enough money to hire me if they're going to be a prick to me. So that was ground rule number one. And we went into it. One job led to another, led to another, led to another. These people I knew at Hasbro, a lot of them left and went off and did great, amazing things. The phone would ring because maybe I was good to them back then. They remembered that I was cool with them, and I did something cool with them at Hasbro. Hey, I'm with such and such company now. I need a video for this. Can you help me out? Yeah, sure. So that's how it happened. I mean, I never looked for a client, not once. Never did I go out there and market the company. Never had to. I've just been lucky that I maintained and managed relationships.
Do you think that your scrappy childhood and, like you said, always being a new kid and always kind of fighting for your place, do you feel like that translated into how you are so protective of your business and your business relationships?
Maybe that my upbringing did have something to do with how I ran a business and how I kind of fought my way through this. But honestly, I think being a musician had more to do with how I run a business than anything, because being a musician, you learn how to collaborate with people. You know what I mean? Because you're in a room creating things with damaged people. Most musicians are damaged people. They have baggage. They became musicians because they were looking for something that gave them worth. So you learn to navigate people, and you learn how to collaborate with people, but you also learn when not to collaborate with people. So it's like you collaborating with people is important, but it's also important to learn when it's a lost cause and when you shouldn't collaborate with people, or when someone's toxic, and not to deal with that. So I think being a musician taught me more about business than anything, than my childhood or being a new kid in school. Those, I'm sure, worked their way into my philosophies with working with people. But honestly, dude, when I left Hasbro and I started my own company, I just thought of people and things differently. I just thought, fuck it, I'm going to help people. I'm going to look at everything I'm doing as I'm going to help them, That if someone comes to me and they need some sort of production done, some sort of video done, some sort of content done, I look at it first like they're asking for my help, and I need to help them. And that's how I approach it, I say I have to like you, I'll help anyone that comes to me and asks for help, but sometimes you have to prove to me that you're worth helping, because my first instinct is always going to be to help you. But as we move into it more, you have to be able to prove to me that you're worthy of that help.
Love that. That's awesome. I'm gonna ask a question. I'm gonna try to ask everybody. If the 10-year-old version of you could time travel to the future, how would they feel about how their life went?
So, if the 10-year-old version of me was sitting in front of me and wanted me to answer how I feel my life went, I would tell them that it went unexpectedly. Everything you thought that you were going to do or you planned to do probably did not happen. because your vision of what you thought you were going to be was naive. You know, when you get out there and you dodge obstacles and pivot, it leads you into places that you thought you wouldn't go. In those places are going to be opportunities for you. You know, just look for those opportunities, and you're going to probably be okay. You know, it's like we're only partially in charge of our destiny as human beings, you know, because things are always going to be thrown in your way. It's how you react to those things, you know. You can be good at something, really good at something, but you'll find yourself in a world of people that are also good at that thing. So the difference between you and them is not going to be how good you are. It's going to be the atmosphere that you create around yourself that people find themselves in. If you're creating an atmosphere around you that people enjoy being in, that's going to be your secret weapon. That's going to be what's going to take you farther. Not how good you are, how you make people feel who work with you and interact with you. That will take you farther than anything, because you're going to find yourself in a world where everybody's good. You're just one more person. Create an atmosphere that people can thrive in and feel good in, and feel good about you, but more importantly, feel good about themselves, and you're going to be okay.